Hello BookTube, I'm here to do a video for June on the Range, but also the ongoing reading that I'm doing of the Sackett series by Louis L'Amour. Now, first of all, the June on the Range was an event created by Michael K. Vaughan last year, and I was lucky enough to be a co-host last year. I'm also co-host this year, and there weren't sort of rules, but if you wanted to participate, it was to read one Zane Grey and one Louis L'Amour. Now, my Louis L'Amour is Jubal Sackett. It's the fourth in the, I think it's the fourth in the Sackett series, chronologically, that is. It was published originally in 1980. It says 85, but that doesn't sound right. And then it says something Louis L'Amour Estate, 1983. So the dates in here are a little odd. But anyway, this is a 2020 mass market paperback by Bantam. And it continues on sort of from the previous book, where we've got Jubal Sackett, who was sent sort of by his father Barnabas to search for a new place to live, like in a new valley beyond the mountains, because they felt that either England or other authorities are going to start encroaching on them and having them to conform to other ways of life that they don't want. They wanted to be more free. So Jubal's out searching. He's unaware, at least at the beginning of this, that Barnabas, his father, had died. He does find out from other native Indians as the story goes along. But he finds a place that he wants to settle himself. But along the way, before he gets there, he has an accident where he falls and breaks his leg in a couple places. And if it wasn't for the help of another sort of traveler, native Indian traveler, then he would have died. Or chances are he would have died. So they travel together. But then they meet some other natives who ask him, they're thinking that he is actually Barnabas, but they ask him to search for a woman who has gone to search for new lands of the Natchez Indians. And she's sort of a princess of this tribe. So he does accept this sort of, to find her. But there's also another group there that want to find her as well and don't like him, and they want to sort of, secure her for marriage for this one sort of, bad guy, bad native Indian. So they eventually do find them, the woman and her party, who's traveling back. And he sort of falls in love with her, and she falls in love with him eventually. They winter first of all in some caves, and they meet a Spanish conquistador that's traveling through the area, or was with somebody else, but they had a mix up, and they sort of parted ways. And he's sort of a bad guy because he wants to sort of take her back and as a slave and sell her because she is extremely beautiful, and Jubal refuses this. So they're also there's other hostile natives around. So they move on. They find a nice valley with lots of game, and they start building a palisade, basically, or a compound, and a life for themselves. And she becomes pregnant because they're sort of joined in husband and wife, and they meet another Spanish conquistador that was the sort of commander, or contemporary, or companion of this other one, and they do realize that he's a bad guy, the original one, and they're probably going to see him again, and they do. But he also sees the good guy again because they had come back, and he is in sort of Spanish territory, so there's a little bit of problems there. So they there's a back and forth. There's with natives. They meet some other, uh, you know, um, uh, peaceful natives, but they're in an area where what are going to be the Comanche are sort of moving in, and that is an issue. But also too, the bad Spanish guy comes back and wants to raid Jubal's compound and take the women, which he does. So he's got to extricate them. It's lots, like it's like once one thing is overcome, there's another crisis to overcome, and it's constant action throughout. And it's one of the longer Sackett novels. It's 300 and some pages. It's probably equal to the second book, to the far blue mountains, and where we see the end at the end of Barnabas Sackett. But yeah, it's a good, like, Louis L'Amour knows how to write a fabulous story. Um, he keeps the action going. As I say, his dialogue is not very good. He's a very, very sloppy writer. I've mentioned this before. There's things that sort of come up with the in the storyline that sort of are touched upon, then forgotten about. There's little contradictions throughout. His historical inaccuracies are tons in here. So many things that are historically inaccurate. But it's a fun. They're fun stories, but they're not very well written. That's the thing. He's a sloppy writer. That's what I will say. But if you can get beyond that and just go with the story and go with the fun of the action and everything, they are very, very fun. And I'm looking forward to reading the next one in the series as well. It's just that they're kind of a thing there where I don't want to read too many back to back because, as I say, they are quite poorly written. So, but they are fun, and that's the thing. And it's just it's an interesting way that he's doing it, because he's looking back through history with obviously hindsight, but he's also imbuing some of the characters with some of that hindsight that they shouldn't really have. But I think in the sense that he would like people to have had at that time, to think of what may have been, and the way American history would have went, because he's he realizes that it hasn't gone that way, but he wants to imbue his characters, who are not historical figures in any shape or form. They're not people that are remembered through history. These are just regular people surviving, and they actually have a vision of what may have been for the United States, for America. And that makes it kind of interesting, back and forth, that kind of thing, because you've got the character who is supposed to have sort of a bit of prescience and seeing the future, or has the feel of things that are going to happen. And that's throughout this as well, because he not only has that, but his wife, Jubal's wife, has this. The native princess has sort of that kind of feeling too, and they feel that there's something going to be happening, and their family and the nation that they're building is something for greatness. So yeah, it is a bit eye rolling at times, but it's an interesting way of imbuing the, you know, the hindsight into the future looking of the characters, um, which is interesting, and it sort of gets into the mind of Louis L'Amour in some ways. So yeah, but it's enjoyable. But as I say, don't expect a lot from it. Don't expect, uh, you know, uh, perfect writing in any shape or form, and just expect a um, a fun rollicking story, but also with something else, sort of imbued throughout the text, and I think the series of his belief in the way things could have been. Thank you, BookTube. I'll see you next time.